Hey, welcome to another episode of Golf in the Life of. Here hanging out with Don Parsons this morning. I reached out to Don because I loved his mindset and framework that he brings to all the Facebook groups. If you're involved in Facebook, I'm sure you've seen his comments, and he just has a really good mindset and way to look at things. So I wanted to hear his story and get some more of how he runs his business. So, Don, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me, Cordy. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, so you started teaching full-time in 1991. Is that right?
That is correct.
What led you to that point?
$900 a month working in the pro shop with a BA in economics and no good job prospects, really. I graduated with like I said, a BA in economics and got out. And 87, there was a fairly big downturn in the market, and best job I was offered was for 60 hours a week for $1,200, $1,200 or $1,600 a month, and basically I couldn't afford to do that because I couldn't afford to buy suits. But I already had all the golf clothes, so I could do it for $900 a month for 40 hours a week. Seemed like a better way to go.
That's crazy. So you just started out working in a shop then, when you first?
I did. Yeah, I agreed to work. He made me guarantee that I'd stay for 6 months. Started off with that, and the plan had always been that I'd just raise money and go back and play competitively again. And about 6 months in, I started teaching some group clinics with another one of the professionals, and really had never considered teaching prior to that. You know, it wasn't. I was a competitor, and teaching wasn't something that really interested me. But after I started doing it, I really found that I enjoyed it.
Cool. So, what was the transition point then of you knew that it was time to go out on your own and do it full time?
I got my PGA membership as quickly as I possibly could. Back then, it was a different apprentice program, and you got I can't remember whether it was 6 months or 12 months credit for a college degree. So the very first month I was eligible to be a member, I became a member, and then that put me in a position where the course owner would allow you to teach full-time. And within 2 months of that, I was out teaching full-time then.
Crazy. So you went from being paid to having to pay rent, having to pay the facility. How did you know that you were ready? Did you have like 25 students that you knew you could count on? Did you have like some groups set up? Like what was the situation?
Ready's an interesting question. I don't feel like I'm ever ready for anything I do, so I just jumped in and figured out I better learn how to make money. You know, but making $900 a month in the pro shop, well, by then I was making probably $1,400 a month. It wasn't a significant amount. Jumping in and starting to teach was a matter of, I think we were charging $40 a half hour back in those days, and it was just, okay, it's a math problem, figure out how to find that many students and go do it. You know, all through college I waited tables, so I've always liked the idea of being responsible for my own success or failure. I trust myself a lot more than I trust other people to pay me a salary, so I'd rather attack life on my own terms.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
The best choice, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, not everybody is set out or has the mindset to want to have their financial success or failure in their own hands. You know, that's something that was unique to you, which not every instructor has, but that a lot of instructors are forced to go into, right?
I think so, unless you want to get in a pretty specialized group. I don't see, just as merchandising really left the green grass pro high and dry back in the early 90s, I don't see teaching at public facilities and the opportunities there to be given a big salary and to be credited with bringing in all the business. The majority of the golf pros I see who are teaching gain way more by having a client base at a public facility that they can tap into to give lessons to than they're actually drawing people in. And I've got there's some pretty compelling numbers even on the resort side. now that the golf boom is over. Most of the big resorts that used to bring in instructors thinking that they're going to fill rooms, those guys keep track of their money, and they figure out exactly how many room nights they're getting. And I know big resort owners who said, well, so-and-so came in for the summer and basically spent the whole summer water skiing. It was a 3-month vacation, so we're not really interested in paying him $5,000 a month to be here because he's not filling that many room nights for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we're going to talk about this later in the interview, but you are part of facility owner, and I want to get into negotiating with facilities and all that stuff. But so this mindset of you knew a number you had to hit, you knew $40 for a half hour, you just have to get to a certain number. Do you still approach your business that way today when you're beginning of the year trying to set goals or you're doing stuff like that?
I do. I actually lost sight of that for quite a while and started again. I'm big on treating teaching like a business. If you're going to do it full time and it's going to be how you earn a living and support your family, I think too many of us get in it when we're very young. Even at the age of 23 or 4, when I started teaching full time, we get in it so young that it's almost extra income. And if we're doing it as assistant professionals, then those couple hours after work, that's your go out money, your beer money. We don't really look at it, okay, I need to earn enough to pay my mortgage, I need to save enough to put my kids in college, I need to do enough to feed the family, I need to save, I need to get medical insurance. We don't treat all of those things the way we should. So now what I've done this year is I sat down and created a budget, and I went through and just picked, okay, if this is the budget that I want to hit and I want to see 20% growth this year, how many people do I have to add at what different levels and which different programs to get that? And then basically you create the sales funnel. When somebody comes in, we're trying to get them into the program, and we're ticking off each month how we're hitting those goals.
That's awesome. What's on that budget that somebody should make sure they're taking into effect? Do you look at, like, for expenses, what are some of the things that you budget for this year?
I am an education animal. I love going to education. Just finished my taxes. They're right here. Corporate taxes for last year. Last year I had $8,000 in expenses for going to visit people, going to seminars, hanging out. I knocked that down a little bit here. One of my favorite things to do is to go to the World Golf Fitness Summit, where I actually presented this year. So that knocked down my budget a little bit there, but I love that one. But it's several days away from work. So I always have a lot of education in there. I have capital improvements that I'm going to have in there. So there's equipment that I want to buy. Last year I bought a flight scope. So you budget for that. Okay, if I'm going to buy a flight scope, and I paid for it in 1 year, which was nice. So this year I don't have that big expense, but I'll have another decent size expense. I think I'm going to buy a KVS 6-DOF system so that I can upgrade some of that. So I'm always looking to upgrade the equipment we have, but I've got, in the background, I've got a big giant laser printer. I got to buy toner for the laser printer. I got to buy paper. All the different office supplies we have by running a business are here. So I just look year over year. After being in the business for 24 years, it's pretty easy to call up the QuickBooks stuff and look to see where big variances are in the expenses and try to figure out what those expenses would run.
I feel like this question has never been asked, but what do you think is an ideal profit margin for the instruction business, right? If I'm starting out, or I'm trying to just look at this new year fresh, like what do you expect, or what would you say is ideal?
I love that question, because that's actually, as I'm starting to grow now, again, one of my great regrets is that I didn't really go in this direction and create a model where I could bring in other instructors and be successful. I've tried not hiring independent contractors necessarily, but to create a model to bring in enough business that I could feed other instructors, teach them, and ultimately, again, send them off into the world to do great things. So this year, as the business owner, rather than just the guy doing all the work, I'm looking to have a 25% margin.
Okay.
And I do pay myself a salary. So I pay myself a salary. I pay my lead instructor a salary. We just hired another junior instructor that we're in the process of training, and then I'm looking to have 25% profit margin, which again, my lead instructor and junior instructors will get bonuses out of that. So that we have this, again, the idea that we all want to feed the business to make it profitable. I'm going to make sure that I keep the expenses in line, and then we're all motivated to see that bottom line grow so that we can all get good bonuses at the end of the year, or actually quarterly is when we get them.
That's awesome. And what would your advice be for, because I know a lot of independent contractors are listening, just one guy teaching. What would you say for a guy like that would you want to see in an ideal situation?
How much profit margin on his gross revenue as a sole proprietor?
Yeah, let's just say not paying themselves a salary, just taking out expenses for education, equipment, facility costs. What would you think would just be an estimate?
60%, 50%.
Okay.
What he's gonna take home. Which, when we talk about it in terms like that, now you start going, well, gosh, if guys are only doing 40,000 in revenue, that doesn't leave much to live on. So we got to figure out how to drive revenue more effectively, right?
That's a huge problem for sure. So this concept of a business owner, if you were to go back to the beginning, or if you were to start new with this mindset, would you try to make it not Don Parsons Golf? Would you just go with a brand and then try to get people into a model? Would that be what you're driving at as a goal, or something else?
I think you want to do both. Oddly enough, this year I started off in the facility I'm at, as a part owner. I also own then my instruction business, and I started off with that, calling it the studio at Twin Lakes. Which it was the studio because we had the indoor facility where we've got 3D, we've got fitness training, we had an indoor putting studio, so it became a facility that we could use. And I wanted to, the idea was to make a successful business out of that and then move out and acquire other facilities. After 3 or 4 years, I had done such a poor job marketing and positioning that brand that this year we actually went back to being Don Parsons Golf Instruction as the main brand, and then I've also gotten involved with the Golf Channel Academy, so I'm going to be one of the Golf Channel Academy sites through Proponent Group, so that'll be co-branding. But my name had so much more value locally. I think it's difficult, other than Golf Tech, I think it's difficult to take a big brand like that unless you're really knowledgeable about creating a good brand and doing it, and create enough value there that you would ever have something that you could sell. I'm trying to make this where we've got a good revenue stream that would make it a viable business, but basically we can't sell our book of clients. Some plumbers can, contractors not. When you're the one doing the bulk of the work, it's a difficult thing to sell. Butch has been pretty good at branding his name and creating other sites for that, but it's really unusual in this business now.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So what would you say, looking back, so you tried the studio branding, what would you do differently now, or what went wrong? What can people learn from that?
I would say I'm not very good at marketing. I'm not very good at creating that brand. I've been good at getting my name out there just because I try to be active and I try to share. Growing up in this community, everyone knew my name. So people know Don Parsons Golf Instruction. They know, hey, call Don. I get referrals all the time from people I've never met, because I ask everyone who comes through the door, how did you hear about us? But the studio, I never did a very good job positioning it. So if you're going to go in that direction and have a completely separate brand, I'll draw from the fitness industry. I was talking to a guy actually about renting our space, and it turned out it was a little bit too small. He's an operator. He's not a fitness trainer. And basically, he said if he was going to come in here, he was going to spend $10,000 a month for 6 months advertising this facility. And I don't think any golf instructors have that kind of spend to be able to go out and market that way in traditional manners. So I think that we're going to tend to build our brand over time a little bit slower. You're going to build it by getting email lists and the social interaction that we get, and you're going to have to brand it by word of mouth. But the word of mouth, unless you've really put in a model that allows for, and again, that's what we're doing right now. Basically, anyone who walks through the door, they might work with me today. They might work with my lead instructor, Chad, who's fantastic. So getting good people in a group and keeping the person motivated along the road is what we're after here. And I think the value is still there in my name, so that's why we shifted back in that direction.
That's cool. So you mentioned the programming and the model that you're going after now. Let's go back to your beginning. What's been the journey of your business and how you've run students through programs, that kind of thing?
Well, it's interesting. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. I had it right when I very first started. The first thing I did when I started teaching, we had some group classes that we were teaching, so we would get 12 people together. Boy, back then it was $60 for 4 one-hour sessions. 2 of us would teach it, and there was a decent amount of money to split, and it was actually better than what the other guy was teaching for as an individual. The other thing I did is, because I had been a very good player locally, it was easy for me to attract some high school guys. So I found about 6 high school guys, and I created a thing called Team Twin Lakes, and I took these 6 high school guys that were actually all from one school and didn't teach them a whole lot about the golf swing because I didn't know a lot about the golf swing then, but I taught them what I knew, which was how to play golf. I taught them how to practice effectively, and we would spend 2 hours twice a week, and I think I was charging them each $150 a month. But again, that was more than I was making in salary just from those 6 guys. And then those guys got so much better that they started winning all their high school matches. In fact, that school didn't lose a league high school match for 8 years after I started that group. So in the very first year I was teaching, I had a coaching program going and had one of my guys get a scholarship to USC, and I was kind of off and running. And then the mistake I made was thinking that it was a better model to go to teaching individual half-hour lessons from there and be able to raise the rates. And so I did that. So that, at some point I was making $150 an hour. But again, if I didn't continually book people one after another, I don't have any sort of cash flow stream to understand what my revenue stream is this year. So shifting to a little bit more programmatic model, trying to move away from the individual one-on-one stuff is what we're going for. Getting, again, the coaching model, trying to pair like individuals up and have them share time, and just create more efficiencies that way is where we go.
What was the shift for you? What was the aha moment of going from, you said 30-minute lessons, to trying to get people into programs? What was the trigger for you?
A friend of mine, Thomas Plummer, who is big in the fitness industry, I met him in 2006, and he said, if you think I can help your business, give me a call. And I thought he was joking, so 2 years later I ran into him again. And I'm slow that way, and finally he just hammered into my head, you got to get away from this because you can't tell month to month what you're going to make. For instance, 1 month, because of the way cash flow would go, if I'm doing 6 lesson series, 1 month, if everyone ended up paying that month, I might do $28,000 in revenue, and then the next month I may do 12 because I'm working off that. May do 8 or 10 because I'm working off that 26. So I don't have any sort of forecastable cash flow that allows me to run a business, and that's really the value in a business. If you've got a base of business that 6 months out, minimum I'm going to make in these next 6 months is $18,000 a month. Now I can start creating some business planning and do different things that I would want to do. where if I have no clue what's coming in, I can do some stuff, but it's going to be very risky, because all of a sudden if I ended up spending $11,000 on a flight scope and only $2,000 comes in, or I get a rainy month or whatever the case is, then it makes it tough to forecast and business plan.
Very, very cool. And as you're doing this, what's your hope? Are you hoping to do like 50-50 coaching and just one-off lessons? Are you hoping to do 80-20? Like, what's the goal for you?
We're doing more programs than we are one-off lessons, and we're structuring our pricing such that it's that. So currently, again, I charge, if somebody walks in off the street and says, what's it cost for a 1-hour lesson? Well, for me, it's $200 for an hour. But if you'd like to get into one of our coaching programs, we'd love to do a 2-hour session with you for $300. We'll sit down with you and find out exactly what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish with this. We'll assess your swing, we'll assess your short game, we'll look at whatever you think needs to be fixed. We'll write out a plan and figure out what it is, and then what you can do is you can come in and you'll work with a variety of the instructors here. The program right now is being written by me, and in 30, 60, and 90 days you should expect to see you'll have learned this, this, and this, and that program now is $300 for that initial assessment and $500 a month to come in and execute it.
Very cool.
That versus $200 an hour makes perfect sense to them, and they do it. Some people just, I had a guy yesterday who called me mid-afternoon and said, oh my God, my short game's disappeared, I really need help. He came in for an hour and he says, I'll check back with you, I'd like you to have you look at my irons, but what you did today was just fine. So still want to offer that opportunity, especially as checkups for people who have been involved in programs. I don't want to shut everyone out. But really what we're doing is we're creating programs that are designed to meet the desires of the people we want to work with, rather than just trying to grab low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. We put together one of our first courses here with Will Robbins on how to start a coaching program. So if people want to check that out, that would be a good resource after hearing this.
So
Don,
what you mentioned real quickly on that idea.
Yeah.
If you're a young golf professional, get started right. It's really, really difficult for me to shift the paradigm of all the people I've taught in this town over the last 25 years. People were used to taking a half-hour or 1-hour lesson from me, and now I'm saying, well, I don't really do that anymore. And there's some pushback. We're seeing great success with it as well. But even my own psychology, it's difficult for me to change that model because I've been established that way so long. Do it right the first time. Make small adjustments, but when you're trying to shift an entire model after you've been in business for a long time, it's way harder.
Yeah, so starting right. I guess a follow-up question to that, have you seen better results with students since switching to this?
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Absolutely. And the interesting thing there for me was I thought there was going to be a lot of resistance from my adult players, because again, they tend to be busy, they tend to be this, that, whatever the case may be. But what ended up happening is I've had a really great track record with working with juniors, and my juniors have done really well. But basically that was the idea. They'd come in as, say, a 13-year-old and say, hey, Don, I said, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to play college golf. I said, where do you want to play college golf? And if they said Stanford, I would say, okay, well, we need to get you ranked in the top 50 in the country. To get you there, we need to play these tournaments. To get into these tournaments, you need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Here's where you are right now. You're shooting 82. Oh, by the way, you also need to get a 4.4 grade point average and be really active in the community because Stanford likes that kind of stuff. And you just start connecting the dots and working through all that. And by the way, you got to have all that done by the start of your junior year, because that's when they're going to start doing verbal commitments with people. So you connect the dots. As I started explaining that same model to the adults, they loved it. So we deal with a lot of business owners so it's basically just that same kind of approach that you take in business. If I want to do this kind of revenue and I'm doing this revenue now, I need to do X, Y, and Z to make the new revenue happen. So those types of high energy individuals really love this model because it makes sense to them. A one quick fix isn't going to do it. They don't hire their accountant to come by and look at it once and then hope everything's okay after that. They're going to have an accountant in there keeping an eye on things every day.
Yeah, for sure. So along the way in your journey, you became a part owner of the facility that you're at now. And I get a lot of questions about people asking about facilities, how much do you pay, what should you expect? So I think you're the perfect person to talk to about this. And so I guess the first place that let's get started is, what do you think, what costs do most instructors not understand that go into having them at a facility?
Big ones I hear all the time are, well, they have to pick the range anyway. Every single ball that goes out on the range is another 10 seconds that a range picker's out there. So if you're there beating balls all day, it costs. Each range ball costs us 50 cents, and there's going to be loss. So I know what the range ball cost is throughout the year. I know how many pounds of ryegrass I put on my lesson area each year. So I've got a 30-yard by 30-yard area that's exclusive to the teachers. We go out there, we tear the crap out of it, and then I know what it costs to regrow that, how much water it costs to put on there, the property taxes. I know, a lot of stuff that I never really considered before I was a facility owner. There's a lot of expenses, and golf, as you know, is not really booming. And if you expect to have a great opportunity to do a lot of revenue and make a bunch of money in the business, I think that it's naive to think that the business owner, who may or may not be making a lot of money, I don't, as a business, I make a lot more money as a teacher than I do as a golf course owner. And that might shock some people. It's not, it's just the way things are. And I take on a tremendous amount of risk by owning this golf course. So I've never had a situation where I couldn't sleep at night about whether my teaching business was going to be successful. But I've had a lot of sleepless nights about whether we were going to make payrolls, because basically if we're not making payroll, my lesson money is going to pay our guys. So it's never been quite that bad, but let it rain 4 or 5 weeks in a row and boy, it starts getting a little bit scary as a facility owner.
So let's craft the perfect proposal then for somebody going to a course owner. If you're going to go approach somebody and try to negotiate to teach at their facility, what would you be going in trying to pay them a flat rate? Would you be going in trying to do a percentage? What would you be saying that you can offer to them? Like, what are the different things that you would want to see?
I'm a huge fan of fixed costs, so I would go in with a flat rate. I would offer to make it fair. The best deal I ever had was at a really nice golf course very close to here. It was a higher-end resort course right on the ocean. Beautiful place to look at. It was $750 a month, flat fee, and I could come and go as I pleased. I pulled my cart out in the morning, had all my teaching tools there, and left at night. And if I did $180,000 in revenue one year, my flat fee was still $750. If I did $60,000 in revenue, it was still $750. It made it hurt a little bit more by doing less money, but what it really did is it encouraged me to be more active, because boy, the more revenue I did after I covered that initial $750, everything else is gravy. So I like flat fees. It's also easier to budget and figure out what you're going to do with that. It really depends on what type of facility you're approaching. I think at a private facility, you do have a lot better chance of becoming, or having a situation where they may even offer to pay you to be there, or give you, enroll you on their benefit program. Because at a private facility, it would be expected that they would have good teaching there. And so you become an amenity, like the swimming pool or the putting green or the short game area, to that facility, and you're a selling point. At smaller public facilities where you might think that you should get a better deal because they're struggling, no, they're struggling. They're gonna expect to see, a revenue stream. That's one of the things we've had to do at our facility. Is I knocked one of the holes out of our golf course turned one of our par fours into two par threes, and then took the ninth hole and turned it into a short game area, both so I could teach at it, but also to create another revenue stream. So at struggling facilities, which there are a bunch of, added revenue streams, even if they're small, are a big deal to the owners.
So what's the best thing you can offer then? Like, so you're going to pay a flat fee. What other selling points or some of the best things to hit on that you can offer to a facility?
That's a tough question.
Would you go in trying to say that you're going to bring more food sales and get more, green fees?
No, I think the way I would approach it, unless you've got a plan for how you're going to create food sales and green fees, a few extra hot dogs. Again, how many lessons a day is somebody given? Especially if you're doing that 1 hour lesson model. If I'm doing 10 lessons a day, am I going to get 100% hot dog sales? Probably not. I'm probably going to get 30 or 40% hot dog sales. So three extra hot dogs a day isn't going to excite a business owner. A guaranteed $500 or $600 a month might make him a lot more interested. And then depending, I would just look at it from what's the win-win situation for you and the owner. You're going to be, in the majority of cases, you're going to be pulling your clients directly from his existing client base. That's the main reason to go to a public golf course. They've got a lot of people coming through there, and basically you've got qualified candidates walking through the door every day. How can you sell them and turn them into your customers as well? Then you might sell the value that if these guys are playing better, they might spend more money on the golf course by playing more rounds, because it's fairly well understood that the more people play, the better people play, the more enthusiastic they are about playing, and they'll come out and spend more money.
Gotcha. Is the weather there year-round, or do you switch to indoor at your place?
We're year-round.
Part of the time?
Yeah, we're year-round. We've been in a drought for 3 years. We're about to run out of water altogether, but so we rarely get rained out. I do, the indoor facility was a little bit desirable because we have had rainy years. But the main reason I did the indoor facility was I wanted to separate the real technical work that I would do working on 3D and biomechanics feedback, and I wanted to have a putting green that was very consistent every single day that I could really work on stroke mechanics with.
Yeah, man, this has been awesome, Don. I guess let's end with this. Now that you're in, kind of a shift in your business, what do you think are, let's just say maybe one or two of the biggest impacts on your business? So whether it's been changing the model, whether it's been doing something with your marketing, what are one or two of the things that people can do today that are going to have the biggest impact on their business this year?
Again, I look at it more from what are you going to do that's going to have a big impact on your career. So my advice would be, again, to sit down and really think about who do you want to teach. I think you should have maybe 3, possibly 4 customers that you really identify that those are your people, and dominate your market with those people. Create programming that fits those people. Say no to people that aren't your people. So it's not unusual for us to have somebody come in and you can tell when you start talking to them about goal setting and such that it's not what they're into. I refer them out to another instructor on site. We've got another guy here that would be more appropriate for you. Go do that. So you don't want to sell people that aren't your customers stuff that they don't need. You want to find your customers and sell them exactly what they need, and that's kind of the idea, again, the customized program and being able to go that way. Think really big. Don't think, how do I do $60,000 or $100,000? Try to figure out how you're going to get to $500,000 or something, and make a mark in the world. That's one of the things that, again, the guys, I don't know golf tech very well, but boy, have they been able to spread and grow and create a bunch of jobs for a bunch of professionals in a market that frankly struggles a lot. You know, they're paying guys a flat salary, and people like me, you know, I wouldn't want to work for Golf Tech in all the world. I'd like to be Golf Tech though. You know, in other words, I want to create that model for guys. I want to help guys who don't want to be entrepreneurs and have all that pressure to be able to provide some jobs for them, and by doing so, then touch a lot more customers and help them improve their games and enjoy the game more.
Awesome. I love that. Are there any books or resources or anything that you recommend that people check out that have had an influence on you?
Switch is one.
Okay.
It's difficult getting old because you forget about. I still remember the lessons that I read. I've got a bunch of them on my iPad that I've read.
Here's what we'll do. Why don't you shoot me an email afterwards, and we'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. I apologize.
No worries, man. This is good. So if people want to check out what you're doing, your website, get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
My website's donparsonsgolf.com. It is not something that I'm amazingly proud of. There's not a lot of great information on that one. You can reach me by email at don@donparsonsgolf.com, or you can call me at 805-403-6060, text, or on Facebook. I've got a Don Parsons Golf Instruction page, and then my personal page, Don Parsons, obviously.
Awesome. If you're any level of instructor and you're working on your business, I think Don's a great guy to talk to. I've enjoyed his comments and his mindset on this. It's been really good. So if you wanna check out those books, we'll have that golflife.com. That's the only place you can get them. So yeah, Don, thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Cordy.
All right.